Hi everyone and welcome to the Lumbermill devlog. For those new here, Lumbermill is a management game I'm building solo in Unity. In this devlog, I'll be making some big improvements to the game's island map, which I first worked on back in July, where the player will choose islands to buy and oversee all of their real estate in one place. Alright, so in order to actually get started on the map, the game has changed a lot since I last updated the save system over a year ago. So it was time to work on that first, as saving islands will be crucial for allowing the player to switch between them. I started by making a plan for how the save files will be structured, before setting up some temporary buttons in the game for saving an island and saving the game, which creates a file. After implementing the system, opening that file in Notepad, it's all in unreadable binary, but as there's plenty of data there, it seems the conversion from objects in Unity to save file on the computer is all working as expected. So next, I added another temporary button to the screen to open up the map. The design currently in place occupies the whole screen. Clicking on an island will take you to it without any kind of nice user experience to go with it. But now, if you leave the island you're currently on and travel back to it from the map, the saving all seems to work, loading up the island as it was before. There's quite a lot that goes into a good save system, and this system is currently only scratching the surface, but I won't get too deep into that in this video. So, next I'll be actually improving the island screen. I started with a hand-drawn mock-up of how the scene will look when finished. There'll be an interface for viewing details about the islands, the map will roll out like paper when opened, and players will be able to buy islands among a few other features. Before that though, this video is sponsored by Core. Core is a free game development platform powered by the Unreal Engine that supports the entire process of game creation, from designing and building to publishing and playing games. If you're interested in getting into game development, Core is a great way to get started. It has thousands of art, music and sound assets, all for free, which you can combine to create anything you want. I made this palm tree from some basic shapes, ferns and materials. There's no need to write any code, however if you do want to, Core supports scripting in Lua, which I used myself to build 2 Core games, and it's really quite versatile. You can also edit and remix games created by others directly within the platform, which is a great way to see how they're put together. If you'd like to get involved, Core are hosting the huge Core Invitational Game Jam with an insane $120,000 of prizes. Applications are now open until the 28th of February. If you follow the link in the description, you can download Core and get started as a game developer. The first thing to do was to turn the islands into individual buttons so there's a bit of visual feedback when hovering over them. I got the buttons generating, but not quite right at first. Their dimensions were off, they were blurry, and they had a transparent grey background. The size was a simple fix, adjusting the settings for the template button in Unity, and the blurriness was just a matter of changing the texture filtering. With the problems all sorted, this is how that looked. Each island has an individual texture on top of it so that it can be coloured independently of the others. Combining those textures with the mouse tracking I implemented back in July, islands can now be individually lit up on mouse over. So I tried experimenting with a few different types of button transitions. Firstly, I made the underlying islands stone coloured so that when hovering, the islands can appear to lift out of the water. I didn't love that though, it felt a bit too attention grabbing for simple visual feedback. So instead, based on the original map design, I decided to add some different grass colour variations for the islands just to make things look a bit more interesting. I added 3 different shades and set up the variables for island mouse over colour changes. This was the result at that point. Islands have some subtle colour variation and light up on hover. So next it was time to move on to the interface that will display information about the islands. So that includes the name, owner, native species and land area. I went for a design quite similar to the one designed a few months ago for the trade interface, just to keep things uniform throughout the game, and also because it's a simple style that can easily be added to and expanded in the future. I added the necessary scripts to control the window, set up the variables, and as usual, it wasn't entirely right on first attempt. For some reason, the animation library I used wasn't setting the position value correctly. A classic Unity mistake though, I was using the global position version of the animation rather than the local version, or at least that's what I thought. So this time, remembering I was animating on a canvas rather than objects in world space, I used the anchor position version of the animation, and that worked at last. Of course, many players will want the ability to name their islands, so that's what I added next. I started by drawing a new pencil icon, which the player can click to start editing the island name. I also added an input field which will switch with the plain text field when the edit button is clicked. Here's how everything worked at that point. Now, a major part of the excitement when travelling to a new island will be discovering what native tree species are there, so I got to work on supporting different island compositions. These are essentially a bank of settings for the forest generator, affecting tree distribution, species, and probably some other details I'll be talking about in a future video. After adapting the forest generator code, which was some of the oldest untouched code in the game at that point, I added the first island composition to the map generator. And as is a theme in this devlog, it seems, that didn't work at first. It looks worse than it is though. I'd just forgotten to generate the grass layer. And with that fixed, everything worked nicely, although the island interface isn't displaying any of the information yet. The most important piece of information is probably what species are on the island, as players will want to know if they're buying an island with species they already have an island for. So I drew an initial set of icons for 3 species: pine, maple, and oak. I'm not entirely decided on other species yet, but there will definitely be more than those 3 in the game. After a bit of time refining those icons, I sliced them and added them to the interface to test. They seemed a bit too small at first, so I expanded the canvas and re-imported the new variations. I'm happy with these for now. I also designed a question mark icon which will be shown for any species that you haven't yet discovered. So the game will only tell you exactly what species an island has if you already have those species on one of your islands, just to maintain a sense of discovery. I created a script to handle the icons, which will hide species not present, show a question mark for species not yet discovered, and display the icon for any that have been discovered. I also added some text which will display as a tooltip when hovering over those icons, in case you're not sure what the species is. Aside from sitting at the computer and making Lumbermill, we've had quite a bit of snow here in the UK recently, and considering the lockdown, it's been pretty nice to see the woods in the area around my house looking so different for a change. So, with all their interface stuff done, now to actually improve the map design. There were a few different variations I was considering, but I ultimately decided to put the map on a wooden table, occupying most of the screen. The design is made up of multiple different layers, which build on top of each other to create the final image. For the table, I wanted to keep it simple and in keeping with the rest of the game's art style, with the dark wood grain running through the 4 pieces making up the table. For the map, I crinkled the edges slightly and, based on old real estate maps, designed a watermark logo to go in the corner, just as an extra detail. That took quite a while to get right, as the text is such a low resolution, it needed quite a bit of refining to keep it both readable and aesthetically pleasing. I also added a layer of light dithering over the map, just to make it look a bit more like paper with a matte surface. Separating all those layers out and importing them to Unity, I put the scene together. It looked fine, but the original border now no longer fit, and the grid was too regular, so I drew a couple more layers for the map. One, a border following the crinkled edge, and a grid also following those same folds to give an impression of an uneven paper surface. By that point, here's how all that looked. The player can select islands from a randomly generated map, rename them, view the species, and the design was much improved from the original. Looking back at the original design though, there still seemed to be something missing. The spaces around the islands just looked a bit empty, so I went back to Sprite and drew a really simple wave texture. I placed a bunch of them around the map just to fill in some of the gaps. Another part of the island interface is a screenshot of an island when you own it. That was pretty simple to implement, just setting up a camera in the game scene to center over the island and take a freeze frame when traveling away, essentially capturing a screenshot of the island which can be displayed on the island interface. The final missing piece was just a nice transition when opening the map screen. I wanted the map to unroll onto the table and had a bit of an idea of how to do it. Going back to the sprite file, I drew a mock-up for how I thought the unrolling animation should look. Happy with that, I animated the rolled up section in its own file, shrinking over time. I could then import that into Unity and move it across the map in an animation, while also gradually unmasking the map underneath. After a little bit of tweaking for the animations, adding some tooltips for hovering over islands and adjusting the interface a little, here's the result for this devlog. When you start a new game, the map unrolls onto the table and you see randomly generated islands. You can click on those islands and view some information about them. If you own an island, a screenshot of the island is shown and you can rename it. You can also travel to that island and return back to the map if you want to go somewhere else. The map screen still isn't complete, and there are a couple of very key features that still need to be implemented, such as a land purchasing system and competing companies, so make sure to subscribe to see where Lumbermill goes next, and follow the link in the description to wishlist Lumbermill on Steam. If you're keen to start making games yourself, remember to download Core. The link to that is in the description. Special thanks for this video go to my patrons, and in particular, I'd like to thank Warner M14, Lego Nerd, Ojo Marin, Dominic, Justin Atom, Pepper Trollman, HPR, Gecko, Mike James, Hayden, Bratfana TV, Kleb, Chris Naismith, Nova, and BD Smith. That's all for this video. If you liked it, remember to subscribe, and I shall see you here next time. Thanks for watching.